Imagine walking into an American elementary school cafeteria in 1963. Metal trays clatter against a steel counter. The room smells like yeast rolls, tomato sauce, boiled vegetables, and warm chocolate pudding. A lunch lady in a white uniform places a scoop of mashed potatoes beside a square of meatloaf. Another worker adds canned peaches, a bread and butter sandwich, and a carton of milk. The entire meal may cost only a few coins. This was school lunch before chicken nuggets, branded snack packs, and bottled sports drinks. Cafeterias cooked for hundreds of children with large ovens, enormous kettles, government commodities, and standardized recipes. The meals were filling, practical, and sometimes surprisingly ambitious. They were also very different from one town to another. A child in Oregon might see clam chowder and oven-baked fish, while a student in Delaware was served pork goulash or cowboy stew. The National School Lunch Program had been created in 1946, and by the 1960s, it was becoming a familiar part of American childhood. Schools tried to build a complete plate around protein, vegetables, or fruit, bread, and milk. That did not mean every tray was perfectly balanced or every child loved what appeared on it, but it produced a style of cafeteria cooking that millions of Americans still remember. Today, we are opening the cafeteria doors again. These are 15 real lunches and lunchroom favorites found in American school menus from the 1960s. Some may bring back a memory. Others may make you wonder how any child finished the tray. Number 15. Sloppy Joes with whipped potatoes. The Sloppy Joe was almost designed for a school cafeteria. Ground beef could be cooked in a giant batch, mixed with a sweet and tangy tomato sauce, and spooned quickly onto buns. It was inexpensive, familiar, and easy for young children to eat, although the name warned them exactly what would happen to a clean shirt. A reconstructed school lunch from 1966 shows just how complete this meal could be. The tray included a sloppy joe, whipped potatoes, green beans, a homemade roll, peaches, and milk. The entire lunch was listed at 35 cents. That was not simply a sandwich thrown onto a plate. It was a hot meal with multiple sides, prepared and served on a tight budget. The potatoes made the lunch especially heavy by modern standards. A child received a meat-filled bun and still got a mound of whipped potatoes beside it. But school meals were expected to provide real nourishment, and many children arrived from homes where dinner could be uncertain. Cafeterias were feeding growing students, not creating a light restaurant menu. For many former students, the strongest memory is the sauce. Every district seemed to have its own version. Some were sweet, some tasted strongly of tomato, and others contained onion, green pepper, or a little mustard. The sandwich might have been messy, but it was warm, filling, and unmistakably American. Number 14. Meatloaf with mashed potatoes and gravy. If the 1960s cafeteria had a signature plate, meatloaf may have been it. Period school menus paired it with mashed potatoes, gravy, corn, carrots, peas, celery sticks, or canned apricots. 1963 menu offered meatloaf with gravy, mashed potatoes, buttered peas, bread and butter, apricots, and milk. Another served baked meatloaf with tomato sauce and whole kernel corn. Meatloaf worked because cafeteria cooks could stretch ground beef with breadcrumbs, oats, eggs, or other binders. The mixture could be seasoned, pressed into large pans, baked, and cut into hundreds of equal portions. Nothing had to look elegant. It only had to hold together long enough to reach the tray. The gravy was important. It covered dry edges, warmed the potatoes, and brought the whole plate together. Children who disliked meatloaf sometimes mixed everything into the mashed potatoes. Others cleaned the tray and hoped for seconds. This meal also reflected the home cooking of the era. Meatloaf was not a special children's product. It was the kind of economical family dinner that appeared in cookbooks and kitchens across the country. School lunchrooms simply reproduced it on an industrial scale. Number 13. Spaghetti with meat sauce. Long before pasta bars and carefully named Italian dishes, school cafeterias served spaghetti with meat sauce. It appears again and again in menus from the early and middle 1960s. A Delaware elementary school served it with tossed salad, garlic bread, fruit, gelatin, and milk. An Oregon school paired ground beef and spaghetti with green peas, a peanut butter sandwich, chilled watermelon, and milk. The spaghetti was usually soft, the sauce mild, and the ground beef broken into tiny pieces. Authentic Italian cooking was not the objective. The goal was to make a large, affordable main dish that most children recognized. Tomato sauce also brought color to trays otherwise filled with beige meat, potatoes, and bread. Serving spaghetti to hundreds of children created its own challenges. Noodles could stick together while waiting in steam tables. Sauce could splash onto shirts and homework. Forks scraped against divided trays as students tried to cut long strands into manageable bites. Yet Spaghetti Day was often popular. The smell reached the hallway before lunch began, and garlic bread made the meal feel different from an ordinary sandwich. For many children in communities with little exposure to international food, cafeteria spaghetti was one of their first regular introductions to a dish considered Italian American. Number 12. Macaroni and cheese with stewed tomatoes. Macaroni and cheese was already an American comfort food, but the school version was not always the bright orange dish people picture today. Cafeteria cooks could prepare it in deep pans with elbow macaroni, cheese sauce, milk, and sometimes a brown top. The squares or scoops were mild, soft, and built to feed a crowd. A 1963 school menu served macaroni and cheese with green beans, stewed tomatoes, bread and butter, raisin and rice pudding, and milk. Another menu paired it with seasoned green beans, a tuna sandwich, and cherry pie. These combinations sound enormous now, but the macaroni sometimes functioned as the meat alternate rather than merely a side. Stewed tomatoes were the unforgettable partner. Their acidity cut through the richness of the cheese, at least in theory. Some children mixed the tomatoes directly into the macaroni. Others built a careful wall between the two foods and hoped the tomato juice would stay on its side of the tray. This lunch captures a basic truth about school meals of the period. A beloved main dish did not arrive alone. It came with vegetables, bread, fruit, or dessert and milk, whether students wanted the entire combination or not. Number 11. Hot dogs, baked beans, and sauerkraut. The hot dog was familiar, inexpensive, and easy to serve, but a 1960s school tray could make it feel surprisingly serious. A 1963 Delaware menu offered a hot dog on a roll with baked beans, sauerkraut, relish and onions, peach cobbler, and milk. That is a much stronger set of flavors than many modern children's menus would attempt. Sauerkraut was sour, onions were sharp, relish was sweet and acidic. Children could build the hot dog they wanted, but the tray still introduced them to foods they might otherwise avoid. Other districts served wieners with mashed potatoes, salad, vegetables, or bread. The hot dog did not automatically come with French fries. Cafeteria planners had nutritional rules and available commodities to consider, so beans or potatoes often took the place of a fried side. Baked beans also made economic sense. They were inexpensive, filling, and could be kept warm in large pans. Together, the hot dog and beans delivered the kind of hearty lunch that carried students through an afternoon of arithmetic, handwriting, and playground races. Number 10. Fish sticks or oven-baked fish on Friday. For many American children, Friday meant fish. Catholic traditions influenced meatless Friday meals, but fish also fitted school menu planning more broadly. Period menus show fish sticks, oven-baked fish fillets, clam chowder, and tuna sandwiches appearing at the end of the school week. 1963 menu listed fish sticks with a potato side, while a 1961 Oregon menu offered oven-baked fish fillets with seasoned green beans and tomatoes, cabbage and apple salad, honey butter sandwiches, butterscotch pudding, and milk. That was an extraordinary number of flavors surrounding one modest piece of fish. Fish sticks were especially practical because portions were uniform. They could move from freezer to oven to tray with little cutting or measuring. Their crisp coating also made fish more acceptable to children who might reject a plain fillet. Of course, timing mattered. A fish stick served immediately could be crisp and satisfying. One held too long in a steam table could become soft. Add the smell of fish filling an entire school corridor, and Friday lunch became an experience nobody forgot, even if they wanted to. Number 9. American pizza with salad and a peanut butter sandwich. Yes, pizza was already appearing on American school menus in the early 1960s, but it was not necessarily the mass-produced rectangular pizza remembered from later decades. One Salem, Oregon menu from February 1962 called the dish American pizza and served it with tossed vegetable salad, a peanut butter sandwich, pineapple Betty, and milk. That combination reveals how cafeteria planners viewed pizza. It was not a complete indulgent meal by itself. It had to sit inside a larger lunch pattern. Salad brought vegetables, the peanut butter sandwich added substance, pineapple Betty provided a fruit-based dessert, and milk completed the tray. School pizza could be made in large sheet pans and cut into squares. The crust was often soft and bread-like. Tomato sauce was mild, and cheese formed a thin layer rather than the heavy blanket found on restaurant pizza. Ground beef might appear as a topping because it was already common in institutional kitchens. Children probably did not care about those details. Pizza Day felt modern. It stood apart from meatloaf, beets, and creamed vegetables. The dish was beginning its long journey toward becoming one of the most recognizable foods in American school cafeterias. Number 8. Oven-fried chicken with vegetables and bread. Fried chicken for hundreds of students would have been difficult and dangerous to prepare in deep kettles of hot oil. Oven-fried chicken offered a practical answer. Pieces could be coated, arranged on pans, and baked until browned. The result promised some of the flavor of fried chicken without requiring a cook to fry every piece separately. A 1961 school menu paired oven-fried chicken with whole kernel corn, a green salad, a bread and butter sandwich, canned peaches, and milk. Another menu served it with parsley buttered potatoes, Harvard beets, enriched bread, applesauce, and milk. Harvard beets, with their sweet and sour sauce, are a reminder that cafeterias did not limit themselves to the safest children's foods. The menu expected students to encounter beets, cabbage, turnips, spinach, and other vegetables that many adults now struggle to persuade children to taste. Chicken was likely one of the more welcome entree. It looked recognizable and felt closer to a Sunday family dinner than an institutional casserole. Even so, a child had to navigate bones, skin, and a crowded tray without the disposable conveniences common today. Number 7. Creamed turkey over mashed potatoes. Schools needed ways to turn cooked poultry into hundreds of servings, and creamed turkey was one solution. Chopped turkey was folded into a pale gravy or cream sauce, then ladled over mashed potatoes, rice, toast, or a biscuit. A 1963 Oregon menu served creamed turkey over buttered mashed potatoes with carrot sticks, a bread and butter sandwich, chilled prune plums, and milk. The dish was soft, warm, and easy to portion. It also allowed a small amount of turkey to flavor a much larger volume of sauce and potatoes. To modernize, the plate may look almost entirely beige. To a hungry student on a cold day, it could be deeply comforting. The mashed potatoes absorbed the gravy, and every spoonful tasted of turkey. Meals like this also reduced waste. Useful pieces of meat did not need to look perfect when they were chopped and covered with sauce. Cafeteria cooking rewarded efficiency, and creamed dishes transformed simple ingredients into something that felt substantial. Number 6. Cowboy stew. The name alone could sell a meal to a child. Cowboy stew suggested campfires, cattle drives, and the wide open West, even if it arrived from a school kitchen in a stainless steel pan. A 1963 Delaware elementary menu paired cowboy stew with cabbage and carrot slaw, peaches, bread and butter, and milk. Recipes varied, but versions of the dish commonly brought together ground beef, beans, tomatoes, potatoes, corn, or other vegetables in a thick filling mixture. This was cafeteria logic at its best. One kettle could hold protein, vegetables, and sauce. Ingredients could change according to price and availability. The finished stew stayed warm and was easy to ladle into equal portions. For children, the romantic name did some of the work. Mixed beef and vegetable stew might sound ordinary. Cowboy stew turned lunch into a story. School cooks and menu planners often use playful names to make practical food more inviting, a tradition that continues today. Number 5. Baked beans with hot French bread. Beans did not always sit beside a hot dog. Sometimes they were the center of the tray. A 1962 Oregon elementary menu served baked beans with cabbage, carrot, and raisin salad, hot buttered French bread, pear pudding, and milk. The meal was inexpensive but carefully constructed. Beans supplied protein and energy, bread made it more filling, the salad brought crunch and color, while the pudding made the tray feel complete. School baked beans were usually sweet and thick, often flavored with tomato, brown sugar or molasses, onion, and perhaps small pieces of pork. They could be cooked in huge pans and held without falling apart. That made them ideal for a lunchroom where one group of students arrived just as another group left. Not every child appreciated a full scoop of beans in the middle of the school day. But for districts operating with limited budgets, beans were dependable. They stretched food dollars while still putting something hot into a student's stomach. Number 4. Chicken rice soup with a tuna sandwich. Soup and Sandwich Day offered a different rhythm from a heavy meat and potatoes plate. A 1965 Oregon menu listed chicken rice soup, toast vegetable salad, a tuna sandwich, chocolate pudding, and milk. The soup could be prepared in an enormous steam-jacketed kettle. Rice, broth, vegetables, and small pieces of chicken turned simple ingredients into hundreds of bowls. A sandwich added the solid portion of the meal, while pudding supplied the reward at the end. Tuna salad was another cafeteria workhorse. Canned tuna could be mixed with mayonnaise, celery, relish, or chopped egg and spread across rows of bread. It was inexpensive, required no last-minute cooking, and also suited Friday menus. Serving soup to young children was not without risk. Bowls spilled, crackers crumbled, a crowded lunch table could shake at exactly the wrong moment. Yet on a wet or cold day, the steam rising from chicken rice soup must have been one of the cafeteria's most welcoming sights. Number 3. Cream of potato soup with peanut butter sandwiches. Here is a lunch that feels both humble and strangely complete. A 1961 Salem menu offered cream of potato soup, a cheese stick, lettuce and tomato salad, a peanut butter sandwich, apple crisp, and milk. Cream of potato soup could transform low-cost staples into a warm main dish. Potatoes provided body, milk created richness, onion and seasoning added flavor. It was easy to cook in quantity and gentle enough for almost any student. The peanut butter sandwich may surprise people who associate it only with a packed lunch from home. In period cafeteria menus, peanut butter sandwiches sometimes appeared as an additional item besides spaghetti, pizza, soup, or vegetables. They added calories and protein with almost no cooking. Allergy policies were not what they are today. Peanut butter could be handled as an ordinary school food, and many lunchrooms relied on it. For a child who disliked the soup or salad, the sandwich may have been the safest part of the tray. Number 2. Pork goulash. Pork goulash appeared on a Delaware school menu in October 1963, served with buttered beets, bread and butter, plums, and milk. The word goulash could describe many American cafeteria dishes, and it did not necessarily mean a traditional Hungarian recipe. In institutional kitchens, goulash often meant economical pieces of meat cooked in a seasoned tomato-based sauce, sometimes with onions, vegetables, or macaroni. The exact recipe could vary by district and by what the storeroom held. This is one reason old school menus are so fascinating. They reveal regional language as much as food. A dish called goulash in one town might be called beef and macaroni, hot dish, or something entirely different elsewhere. The sides are equally revealing. Buttered beets and plums were not decorative extras. They helped the cafeteria assemble a meal from available produce and canned fruit. Children were expected to face the full tray, including the dark red beets that could stain almost anything they touched. Number 1. Chipped beef or brown beef in gravy. Few dishes represent old-fashioned institutional food better than beef in gravy served over toast, rice, biscuits, or potatoes. 1961 Oregon school menu called it brown beef in gravy over buttered rice and paired it with sliced beets, bread, fruit cup, and milk. Related creamed or chipped beef dishes were common in military kitchens, diners, homes, and other institutions. The appeal was economic and practical. Small pieces of beef could be extended with a large quantity of gravy. Rice, toast, or potatoes absorbed the sauce and made the serving more filling. Everything could be prepared in bulk, held warm, and portioned with a ladle. To some students, it was comfort food, salty, creamy, and warm. To others, it was an unappealing pool of gravy that spread into every compartment of the tray. That division may be why the dish remains so memorable. Nobody felt neutral about it. It also tells the larger story of the 1960s cafeteria. These kitchens were not trying to imitate fast food restaurants. They worked from the traditions of home cooking, military mess halls, agricultural abundance, and government nutrition programs. A successful meal used what was available, fed many children quickly, and wasted as little as possible. Looking back, these lunches can seem heavy, unusual, or even contradictory. Pizza arrived with a peanut butter sandwich. Macaroni and cheese came with stewed tomatoes and rice pudding. Hot dogs shared a tray with sauerkraut and peach cobbler. Milk appeared almost every day. But the combinations were not random. School lunch workers were trying to satisfy meal requirements, use seasonal or government-supplied food, control costs, and serve hundreds of children within minutes. Many kitchens made rolls, cakes, puddings, and sauces from scratch. Behind every tray was a team doing difficult physical work long before the first lunch bell rang. The 1960s also brought major change. Federal child nutrition programs expanded, and the Child Nutrition Act of 1966 strengthened the national commitment to feeding students. The decade was far from perfect. Access was uneven, and many poor children still lacked adequate meals. But school food was becoming an increasingly important public promise. A child's ability to eat should not depend entirely on what waited at home. That may be the most important memory hidden inside these old menus. The food was not always beautiful. The vegetables were sometimes overcooked. The spaghetti could be soft, and the fish sticks could lose their crunch. Still, for countless children, the cafeteria offered a dependable hot meal, familiar faces, and a place at the table. Which of these lunches would you bring back for one day, and which one would you refuse to eat? Tell us in the comments. And if you remember a 1960s school cafeteria, share the meal that never left your memory. For more true stories about the food, families, and everyday life of America's past, subscribe to True America Files. Then watch our story about the surprising school meals served to children in the 1950s. The trays may look different, but the memories connect one generation to the next.